Welcome, Jennifer. Go ahead and
Thank you.
introduce yourself and take it away. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a beautiful summit, and I'm so happy to be here. All
Okay,
right.
go for it.
I'm ready to have fun with all of you. My name is Jennifer Posada. I am an oracle, author, and teacher. And I have been teaching people all over the world for 22 years about intuition, sexuality, and self love. I also teach about feminine ecstatic practices for all, and really about how pleasure and authenticity are at the heart of all of this and how they change the world. So they change your life, they change the world. Really, to me, pleasure saves lives and can turn around more than we realize. And we'll get to talk about that today. I'm the founder of the Oracle School and Community, as well as the Orgasmic Woman Project, and I'm the author of The Oracle Within and my new book I'm working on and bringing to completion soon, The Return of the Sexual Priestess. So I'd love, before we even begin, to just give us a chance to feel our bodies a bit, something very simple, 3 breaths. I like to make them deep. Feel what feels good to you right now. There's no big pressure. And if you want to sigh on the exhale, please sigh on the exhale. So I'm going to make sure I'm comfortable first. I'm going to actually feel my pelvis against the chair I'm sitting on. And immediately that makes me feel more grounded. I'm going to feel what it feels like to connect with you all right now. And it feels incredible. What a group of bright lights. I can feel everyone who will also see the replays. Oh, so that first deep breath just came spontaneously from becoming even more embodied. And now I'm going to take an intentional few breaths. And if you're joining, you can move at my pace or at your own, whatever feels good to you. Ooh. Ooh. Good. Wonderful. If you've closed your eyes, and if you'd like to, you can gently open them when you're ready. Lovely. So, I want to begin by saying that I also love that this is a Beltane centered event. Beltane's sort of my favorite holiday, and it is because it's sexuality focused. It is because it is in my hemisphere also just mid spring. Everything is coming to life, and you can feel the ancient connection to what this holiday celebrated because it's still happening in the season around us here in the Northern Hemisphere. And also, one of my favorite thoughts is about how people would gather around the Beltane fires to have sexual experiences together. And that level of celebration is something that brings my heart so much joy. And so, one of the things I want to bring to us today is what would it feel like to think about this as a new beginning for yourself with Beltane this year? What's going to be your new beginning with pleasure? This summit is a beautiful, perfect place to get inspired and figure out what it is that you want to lean into. And you can say at Beltane 2026, I began this new journey. So I love that. I love a new beginning. I love setting intentions. And I want to tell you all a little bit more about why I'm here so that you'll have context for what I'm going to share today. I'm also going to set my little timer so I know what's going on. in this dimension. So, my story starts with, I'm gonna see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, okay. So my story starts with me as a little girl, actually how I came into this world. And I came in remembering. So, yes, that means that I came in remembering my past lives. It means I came in remembering why I was here. It means that I remembered how to see people's colors and so many other things that actually were really challenging to remember as a tiny child in this world as it is. Because I always say that the most special gift was not about remembering past lives. It wasn't about having visions. Again, in fact, in the beginning, that was challenging. It was that I knew beyond the shadow of any doubt that everything was love. I knew love was behind everything. And because I could feel it, it's not just something I knew. And because of that, I felt that I was love and that I was the most intimate form of that love. And so I loved myself. I used to write, I love myself. I even capitalized the S on self. Um, I That is really my greatest gift that I've had. That and the sense that this was my reason for being here. So when I looked around at the adults around me who were teaching me, how to be safe and what was supposedly wrong and right, I saw that they didn't know about that love inside. So as a tiny child, I knew why I was here. So there are other stories about how I first found the Akashic records. I didn't know that's what it was called. I called it the inner library when I was a little girl and had these experiences where I would pass out and come back with information. And that's in my book, The Oracle Within, if you want to hear more. But I want to focus on a really important vision I had related to sexuality later, because most of my life has been marked by important visions that opened up doors to things from the ancient past that I was meant to bring forward, and also helping people be able to tap into their own ancient memories that they were then meant to bring certain gifts forward from. So, this memory comes from a time where I was actually masturbating in a hotel bathroom. I was 19 or 20. I had all the lights out and I suddenly had a vision. I had a memory of being a sexual priestess. And that was the term I used for it. I didn't know what a term would be, except that that's sort of how it came across in the message I got. And in this vision, I wasn't being sexual. I wasn't having like a sex act of any kind. I was actually levitating, but I could feel the power of this. And the message that came was, you are a sexual priestess. And no sexual experience you ever choose can be shameful. It's all blessed, it's all sacred. And the rest of the message, I talk more about that in my next book, just really impacted me. And I'd had some experiences already that kind of focused me in that direction, but this was really direct and really potent. And so in the 20 plus years since then, a part of my mission has been to unearth these memories of the sexual priestess. That's why my book is called The Return of the Sexual Priestess, because it is time for this priestess to return. Before I go on about what the sexual priestess is or why she matters, I want to say that the sexual priestess is not just for females or women, it is for people of all genders. So there's a couple ways that can look. One can be that you identify as a sexual healer in some way, and it doesn't matter what your gender is, and you can hear the term sexual priestess and apply it as you like. Another is that you may be another gender at this time, but you may feel like in a past time you were a sexual priestess when I describe this. Another is that you might be a person of any gender who wishes to engage with a sexual priestess, who wants that to return to their lives to be some kind of recipient of this. So, one really important thing about the sexual priestess, also sometimes known as the sacred prostitute, is that they weren't just we're talking about a long length of time, and the ancient times are not remembered, or as far as I know, at all written about. It's usually a bit of the later times, and there were traditions all over the world. So we might think of just sort of a woman in a temple waiting in a room in the back for someone to come and she offers the healing. And that's a beautiful way for that to happen as long as it's super consensual and empowered. But actually, in the really ancient times, these women were the rulers. They were what we would think of as something like a spiritual leader and maybe like a queen. But they were not the rulers because they had power over. They were the rulers because they were the embodiments of love. They were the embodiments of love. People wanted that to be the guide. People wanted to receive that love and remember that love inside, very much like people going to the initial ancient oracles. They wanted to be reminded of the true essence. And sexual priestesses did this by embodying love. So they could share it sexually, and it didn't need to just be with anyone who came. The sexual priestess would choose who she knew she had the right gift or frequencies for. It wasn't just at random, she chose, and someone else might be right for somebody else. But also, a sexual priestess could choose a path where she just communed with nature. A sexual priestess, very much like the nymphs before them, which is something else that I talk and teach about a lot. A sexual priestess might just provide a transmission energetically, or with hands off healing, or with eye contact, or with words. So there was a wide variety of ways that, of course, a person could heal with love, depending on what the scenario was. So when people ask me, well, how do I become the sexual priestess, which obviously I talk a bit more about today, something so important is inner direction. And we've heard other speakers talk about this. Inside of you and in your body, you know what's right for you. Sometimes I've said that over this whole 22 years, the essence of everything I've taught is about finding what feels right to you. This is beautiful and huge. And when you're inner directed, it doesn't just change your sexual interactions, it changes everything, just like pleasure does. So I want to get into a little more of that. Oh, good. So good. Glad I've got more time. So that's enough about my story for the time being. I talked a little bit about the sexual priestess. Yeah, I want to talk about the priestesses of Aphrodite. So one of my favorite visions was of a time, so we're going way back again, right? So there were temples to Aphrodite later that had like hundreds of priestesses that didn't even choose to do this. It's not what I'm talking about. Going way back to a time where Aphrodite was actually thought of as a sea nymph, and where the tradition of the nymphs, which is, I should at least express this much about the nymphs. So this was also from a memory. Like I said, it's all memories and visions in my life. The first time I went to Delphi or Delphi in Greece, there was a spring there that was actually the original oracle site before the Temple of Apollo, that made me have these profound memories of being a nymph. Some of the most beautiful I've ever had, because nymphs, they're talked about mostly in Greek mythology, but there were nymphs around the world, nymph traditions. Nymphs lived in what we would call varying states of orgasm. This was their reality. They were incredibly powerful. So in the Greek myths, we're sort of told that they were at the mercy of like the deities, and they were phenomenally powerful, super enlightened. Not that you can sort of give grades to enlightenment, but omnipresent, omnipotent. And of course, they could provide messages from nature. They were completely connected to nature in their body. They didn't see that as separate. So there's an incredible amount of wisdom there. After the world scenario changed quite a bit, people still remembered how the nymphs and their pleasure kept things in harmony. And so they created temples like this, from this memory that I had, this temple of Aphrodite, where they wanted to create for the priestesses there something as similar as possible to what it had been like for the nymphs. And so the entire focus of the temple was how to keep these priestesses in pleasure in whatever way they wanted. It could be sexual touch, it could be them having, extra comfort in the way that they were sitting or lying down. It could be that they wanted cool water. It could be that they wanted to go to the ocean. The temple, I remember, had a whole open wall that faced the ocean because it was so important to have both the temple and keep the connection to nature. Again, very nymph-like. So I remembered it was like a stone pillar, but like a stone bed. And then there were like comfortable furs or fabric, something on top that made me feel at ease. And I remember the feeling, oh, it still gives me chills, that my pleasure was the most important thing that I could offer, because the understanding was that, and everyone who helped keep the temple wanted to help keep these women in pleasure, and it brought them joy. The support, oh, the support was there. And then again, it was believed that that would help to keep the community and even the larger world and cosmos in more harmony. So the job was to be in pleasure, and there was no pressure. You could go, sit alone in the grove and be away from everyone. You could do whatever you wanted. It's your pleasure that was your purpose and service and the way you gave back. So now I think a lot of us still, even if we're like pro pleasure, tend to feel like it's something we just do for ourselves. And it is really good to get to the place where you can do that, where you can make the time and space for your pleasure. That's amazing. And it is still just for you. That's the only way it works. However, it shifts everything. That's the way it works as well. Like, we know it shifts your whole physiology. It begins to shift your entire neurology. You can't help changing your neurology when you add in more pleasure or explore your body more or have new experiences like that are pleasurable. It also shifts everything in your life. It also shifts everyone in your life. It also has a larger ripple effect. And I know that so many people in the world are a lot of the time sort of frozen about what to do. What can we do to make the world better? What is available to us? And it can be so overwhelming. And I am here to say that this is one of the most important secrets that has been kept hidden from us. It matters when we allow ourselves to do without pressure what we can to invest in our pleasure, because it resources us. I mean, all the other reasons I already said, but it resources us so that if there's something else we want to give to the world, if there's some other way we want to invest in our other gifts, if there is something else we want to do, we are more resourced. And that changes everything. So there's a reason we got the message, and goodness knows for so many generations, the message that it's not about our pleasure or pleasure is unsafe. And finding safety is one of the most important parts of this whole journey. Even if all you did was think about the small ways you can find safety, it is a journey, and it does oscillate and change from day to day. But even the little things like, well, if I am going to self pleasure today, I know I'd be more relaxed if, my roommate wasn't home, or if I close the door, or if it's not when, whatever, those little ways that we can tend to our pleasure and make ourselves feel a bit more safe and relaxed. We have infinite potential for pleasure. And if some of you feel like that sounds overwhelming, one of the things that I love is that it just means that there are so many options. So for decades, I've been exploring my pleasure, and I honestly have thought that I reached, the limit, the level, like it can't get bigger than this, and it just doesn't stop. I call it the ever blossoming flower. What we're capable of in, for instance, our neurology is it's again, it's sort of a thing that has been hidden from us. And that's why work like this and all of what these teachers are offering and us saturating ourselves in information is so powerful because you begin to unlock these doors of potential in your body and in your being that are what we would call magic. So, one of the ways that, um, you know, the idea of having something like an energy orgasm is and an energy orgasm, I won't go into great lengths, but I like to define it as a non-traditional orgasm. So maybe there's some touch, but not probably just your typical genital touch and arousal and excitement. But you could maybe have an orgasm while you're kissing or while you're having your arms stroked, or, and then we could go into non-touch ways like listening to music, eating a beautiful piece of fruit, all of that. I remember the first time that I taught myself how to do this, and now I teach about it. I have a course called the Energy Orgasm course, and I have courses about the Sexual Priestess. When I first spent time finding out how to do this, I was basing it on memories of being a nymph and how they were so orgasmic as a state of being. And when it happened, and I had to not, this is kind of key as we all sort of know, I had to not make that the goal. I had to connect with the pleasure, allow it to build, but not make it the goal. But when it did happen, and really the best way I can describe it, it's just like it is like an orgasm or climax that's more traditional, but it feels kind of ethereal. And there are so many healing applications for this or reasons why it can be so phenomenal for people. But I love to say, I say it every time, but after that happened to me, I felt like I imagine Dorothy felt in The Wizard of Oz in the storyline when everything goes from black and white into color, where she opens the door and everything is in, technicolor. Because we need to be able to know that magic is real and that we can create it. I mean, magic is in this, like in these tiny flowers I picked outside before I came to talk to you all. Magic is all around us, but there are experiences that remind us that we have potential we had no idea of. So sometimes we find that with our intuition. And one of the things I love to do is to connect intuition and sexuality because there is a level at which there is no difference. But when you get so comfortable with your intuition that one of the things that happened to me this spring is that I was standing at the window in my bathroom and I thought, I can feel that the frogs are going to start singing soon. I just knew I could feel them getting ready. And near my house, there's more than one, but at least one like small wetland. And the very next night, the frogs sang for the first time all spring. There's a level at which we can tap in, especially to nature, but along all the lines that we think of as like these mystical gifts. And they are, but we are born with this ability. We have these gifts as souls, and we have these gifts in bodies. One of the things I love about my sense of the nymph memories is that I'm still in the place where those experiences happened. They were on Earth. And, I've loved visiting ancient temples in Egypt and Greece and India and Tibet and other places that have been amazing. But to look around and see the same setting, whether it's a grassy area or the forest or the ocean where we lived in these states of ecstasy is incredible. So I want to at least talk about one more thing. So some of you might be thinking, because this is so real, wow, Jennifer, this sounds pretty cool. I'm glad you can be such a bliss bunny. And I have, 4 kids. I have an aging parent. I have 3 jobs. I have truly deeply profound pain, physical or mental health issues. And my one of my favorite things to talk about is why that is exactly the kind of space one might want to head in this direction from. So just as a reference point, I have dealt with in my life a truly incredible chronic illness. deep and profound pain, trauma, other things like that. We could go on. And I think that makes me a much richer teacher. I think that being able to say, I do understand what it's like to be in unrelenting pain. And I could still access and lean back into ecstatic states. And we can start so small. I mean, one of the places we can begin is just being as gentle with ourselves as possible. Like, where could we take the pressure off in the smallest way? Where could we say yes to, I'm going to go out of my way on my way home to get my favorite tea that costs a couple dollars more. And then I'm going to sit down and, I don't know, soak my feet or pull up a blanket and just have my favorite fucking tea and a moment to myself and decompress a little bit. And I'm not going to feel amazing afterwards, maybe, but that might guide me to the next thing. That might guide me to, a hot shower would be amazing for me right now. So I'm going to do that. So this opportunity to be inner directed and possibly pleasure led and getting more and more comfortable with that is where the game changer is. And that means that you may be working toward these more profound pleasure states because they are available to us, every single one of us. And then as you continue to be informed, like when pleasure is your organizing principle, which is, I mean, all the voices may come up, but wait, this is just making things nice for myself, or I'm going to be having my head in the sand. I'm not paying attention to what's going on. I promise you'll have more capacity for what's going on in the world in your life if you can find your way toward pleasure as guide, toward your body as guide. And I always say, look, if you are I like to describe it as the underworld and going through, which is always so that you can ultimately have some gift for yourself and be some kind of guide in whatever way is meant to be. But if you are in that place, I always say, sometimes it's just getting your foot in the door. You're just making enough space to kind of slip in and be like, what if I sort of put my toes in the water about one thing that I heard in the summit or one thing that Jennifer said that I thought, yes, that lands in me. I know that's true. Or that makes me want to go sit in my favorite grove of trees with my feet bare for just a minute and let it be okay that I'm experiencing pain or grief or whatever else, rather than pushing myself into, oh, that means I have to feel pleasure. The other key here is the authenticity, having there be room for all of it. And then as you get better and better at feeling what you need to, grief, pain, etc., it just gets easier and easier to then lean toward when it's time. Oh, and this would feel pleasurable and healing. Now that I cried it out, now that I had to confront that person and speak my truth and it was difficult. But again, all of those things can be resourced by having invested in your pleasure and your authenticity. I can lean back into pleasure and then it changes the game. And I promise you, it changes the world. And you don't have to do it for that reason because then it's not as inner-directed. That can be an inspiration. But if you're trying to do for out there may be cases where someone's gift is so aligned that it's different. But if you're generally doing for out there, you've lost that inner direction. And if you can trust enough to give yourself whenever you can, whenever it feels right, the thing that will feed and nourish you, it's the overflow is exquisite. And some days it might not feel like overflow, but then you'll be able to lean back in. And then you'll feel like it's a difficult time, and then you'll be able to lean back in. And every time you do that, I'll just say again, you're building new neurology. It becomes easier in part on the physical because you're actually building and strengthening new neural pathways. And then when you want to hop on those superhighways that you've built by leaning into pleasure and paying attention to it, you can. And it's really easy. And it doesn't have to take a long, long time to start to build this either. And once you get those so many of you have already felt this, tastes of this magic, this just unmistakably transcendent sort of powerful magic where it was sexual and it was pleasure and you had insights and you experienced a part of your nature you didn't even know was there, you will naturally want more of that and be able to lean into more of that. So I'm gonna look at the time here. How am I doing? Have I got a couple more minutes? Yeah? Okay. I think, would you guys say I've got 2 minutes, 3 minutes? Oh, nice. Let's do a little practice if you guys are into it. So I could talk, all day about so many of these topics, but being able to have a sense of what I'm talking about in your body, and then if it feels good to you, to be able to return to this, because someone described it when I taught about this, pleasure being your purpose and organizing principle, the way that you may actually offer benefit to the world most because it resources you and for so many other reasons. They said, this is a paradigm shift. And it really is. And this is one of the things that essentially, I don't want to say was taken from us because it seems super disempowering. And there's been a reason for what I call the great forgetting. And we're entering into the great remembering. But when we know that our pleasure is this valuable, yeah, it is a game changer. So I'm just gonna give us a chance to, you can close your eyes if you'd like. And for a moment, let's just be with our body without trying to change anything unless you'd like to. Hmm. Wonderful. So I'm focusing again on feeling my pelvis against the chair. And I can actually feel my vulva and vagina on the chair. And that feels, I can feel how awake and alive she is right now and that she wants to tell me things. I always call our genitals the other heart, like our other heart that can tell us things and that can also be an organizing principle. And so I'm just going to let that radiating feeling happen. It was already there. It was brought about by being here with all of you and teaching this. Okay, so I'm feeling my body settle even more deeply. If there's anything that would make you more comfortable, maybe laying back on pillows if you have pillows behind you, or maybe you like sitting up straight. Maybe you need a sip of water if you have that handy. Or maybe you need the permission to be like, I don't need this practice. I'm going to go get the water. You can have a deep breath if you'd like one. Wonderful. So if you'd like, you can imagine being in a beautiful temple where the stones of the temple feel alive, warm, stone floor, the walls, and where there is so much openness, you can still see trees, the sky, the ocean to one side of you. You can imagine that you're laying down, if that sounds good to you, and everything that's touching you is soft. And you feel held, and you feel safe. You know that others are looking out to make sure things are okay and well so that you can let go in whatever way feels good at this time. And maybe it's slow. You could just feel like it's good to let go of your legs, your neck, your back, and then slowly you might feel like you melt more into this soft space where you are cherished and cherished all the more so for following your pleasure and inner knowing, where you are cherished for following your body and for caring for your body in whatever way feels good. If you want to, you could have another deep breath. And in this place, you feel like you have allies in your pleasure, people who want to support it, and others are there who are in pleasure. There is an environment of nourishing support. And in your heart, it's like you're going to keep a memory of what it feels like to have your pleasure celebrated and to really know truly and deeply how valuable it is, how much it can reorganize everything in your being, body, life, and contribute to the best in the world and help bring forward your gifts even more so. If you'd like another deep breath, let's do two more with a sigh on the exhale if that feels good. Wonderful. Again, just getting one more feeling of what it's like to have your pleasure celebrated, even right here, right now, as I'm saying these words. And so I'm celebrating your pleasure. We're all celebrating each other's. Get to keep that feeling inside of you, and it can grow and be revisited and lived from. So when you're ready, if you're not already feeling your body, you can just come back to feeling your body in its physical space, perhaps whatever you're resting, sitting, or standing on. And then when you're ready, if you have your eyes closed and if you'd like, you can just gently open your eyes. Wonderful. Give everyone just a few moments to feel themselves settle back in. Oh, thank you all. What a pleasure. Oh my goodness. I could feel everybody. What a beautiful group.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was such a beautiful meditation. I was
Mm.
definitely in the Greek islands for that one.
Yeah. Nice place to be.
Please share with her your reflections, mirror back to her how amazing she is and the
Mm.
gifts that you got from her presentation today. And thank you so much for being our closing speaker today on the Power of Pleasure Summit. We so appreciate everyone's time and attention and the curiosity that you bring to summits like these.
I didn't mention, but it's called "What Kind of Sexual Priestess Are You?" Again, any gender can benefit from this, and you can learn more about what your special gifts might be. So, and thank you so much, Leah and Willow. This has been beautiful.
Oh,
Awesome.
so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer. I really hope that if you can take some time out and shoot us an email, support@sexreimagined.com. Share with us who your favorite speaker was and what you got from the summit these last couple of days. It really helps us curate further the kind of programming that we can bring to you and continuing to deliver great education in the sexual arts. So we'd love your feedback on that.